Hello, and welcome to Team Franco Bodybuilding Podcast, episode number 42. My name is Joe Franco, and the title of today's little episode is Do Not Make It Bigger Than What It Really Is. As you know, when I do these podcasts, they're typically from either conversations, via emails or in-person clients, that things that we talk about or build up, and then something clicks. So as we know, that competition season is in full swing. Shows going on every weekend. So this is going to be a little bit more geared towards those that are competing for the first time and those who may be competing or coming back to the game, or they've been in the game and they need to have a different mental outlook. Growing up, when I was into sports and everything, I was really into baseball. That's one sport that I succeeded at. And even at the professional level, you'll see typically two types of attitudes or mentalities to the game. And sometimes you'll hear the sportscasters talk about each of them. The first one being that guy has a real slow heart rate, or nothing affects him. He's got ice in his veins. So in other words, nothing bothers him. He just does what he needs to do, and typically that's because they're so well prepared. They have gifted genetics, whatever it may be, but typically I think you're born with that, ice in your veins. And then conversely, you'll have the person who's the opposite, who is the go-getter, the more aggressive, in-your-face type of athlete that needs to be on edge, hyped up, and they can be equally successful. So you see both, and both can be achieving great things. Typically, you'll see that in football and baseball, only because of the sports I follow, like the great ones that have that slow heart rate. A lot of people hate Tom Brady, but he's got ice in his veins, and he's just Joe Cool, just relax, and just does it. Did he have the greatest genetics? Probably not, but his preparedness is something that is unmatched. And then you'll see that in baseball. I think Derek Jeter was always a fine example of that. Just obviously really good player to make it to the big leagues, but it's not like he had the best genetics, but his work ethic, being cool under pressure, has really put him on the top, and obviously a Hall of Famer. And then you have the other athletes that are just the opposite, like I was talking about, super aggressive, like Pete Rose and most football players that are just more aggressive, and linebackers. So what I'm trying to get to is that you'll see the same type of people compete. Now, obviously, the ones that are aggressive aren't the ones that are, we should all be aggressive when we train, and there's no real outlet, because, when you're on stage, it's still you versus you. You practice your posing, you're hitting your poses. But it's the mentality during the prep is that where I think people get caught up into and make it bigger than what it really should be. So therefore, having the more calm, slow heart rate mentality will benefit you that much more and will give you that greater success. I've done podcasts about this, and I've touched upon different things, and I'm just putting it together. Because once you decide to make that goal of competing, nothing else should really change in your life. You're still going to weight train. You're still going to eat. Obviously, there's going to be a couple differences where you may add some cardio to help burn fat. Maybe mentally wise, you're going to train harder, which I don't think you need to be, because if you've been doing this right all along, you're going to be training your ass off all year for many years, because that's what it takes. And then when it comes to the diet, hopefully you have been eating somewhat healthy and in a surplus to put your body in the right position. So therefore, you're just reducing calories. Some can be more aggressive than others, some slower with a longer prep. But it should not interfere or change anything else that's going on in your life. Yes, it's great to be excited. When you decide to compete, it's an exciting time. But not to the point where it's going to be an obsession where you constantly think about, where it's going to throw you off from other things that are important in your life, and that could be family, friends, spouse, job, your career, your business, whatever it is, where that is only going to fuck things up even more and put more stress on you under your body that's going to be stressed already because of the newness of competing and the reduction of calories. I've been on both ways of doing it. Okay, when I first started competing, it was all excitement, and I really didn't have any stress at that time, in my early 20s, late 20s, because I didn't have any other responsibilities. Yes, I was focused, but I was relaxed about the process because I was just excited to be on stage, did what I had to do without it ruining my life. Got married, had kids, yada, yada, yada. Competed a couple times, but then I let stress and that aggressive attitude take over, and I think it actually hurt me, only because I did too much during my training. I got too aggressive with my diet, and it ruined my look. That's just me personally, because I lost that coolness, that edge of just being more relaxed about the process. And it probably wasn't until the last time that I competed, 2019 versus the 7-year break from 2012, where I think I've messed things up, where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to see what happens, still focus on my business with my clients, the shows that I promote, family life first, and just roll with it. So, my diet wasn't anything too extreme, but with the exception of reducing calories, adding cardio, still busting my hump and my ass in the gym, doing what needs to be done. And when I did compete, it was a great time. Don't get me wrong, to be on stage. Wish I was on stage longer, that sort of gig. But after the day was done, it was like almost anticlimactic because the journey itself was such a learning experience. It was such a good time to me to be able to get back in the thick of things, especially being a coach to many clients that compete, to understand how they're feeling again, where the contest day itself wasn't as important. It was the journey for me. And I think that is all because I had that low-key, that cool, ice vein attitude of keeping my heart rate low, not getting overly excited or worried, that I had a much better experience during my prep for those, 4 months or whatever it was, compared to what I did in the middle of my career of bodybuilding, where I had more pressure about, I got to win my pro card. I got to do my best at the pro level. So if I could do it all over again, I would repeat the type of attitude that I had the last time I competed. So what I am trying to bring out to you guys, if you're a first-time competitor and listening to this, or if you are a seasoned competitor and have had the issues, don't make it bigger than what it really needs to be, okay? Because it's not going to be life-changing. It really isn't. I mean, it's cool. You get pictures. If you win, that's great. You reach the goal. You win your pro card. You win a pro show. People can see you and everything. But at the end of the day, it's still you. You're still going to go back to eating more calories. You're still going to be training. Your life is not going to be life altering. So to make it a life-changing event is not to make it that big of a deal of an event. So therefore, you're not going to have any regrets. Because how often have you heard, and I've seen it, when people start their prep, they shut everyone out. They shut everyone out. Their relationships, their husband or wife or whatever, don't like what they're doing. You're changing. You're grumpier. You're more moody, and I don't want to be with you anymore. I've heard that. I've seen divorces happen. Believe it or not, I've seen people break up, and for what? This is supposed to make us a better person when we compete, right? We're doing something that not everyone can do because we want that challenge. Yes, it is hard. I'm not going to lie or bullshit you. When you do get super lean and just say that you are a higher level competitor or you need to lose a body, it's not going to be easy. But at the same time, don't let it ruin everything else, and don't make it bigger than what it really is, because life goes on. You're going to have more days of not prepping than you are prepping. on this earth. So don't make it bigger than what it really is. And that is the philosophy of my coaching, really. I mean, obviously, as a coach, I want you to look the best you ever have. I want you to do well and look like you belong on stage. But I also believe in keeping balance and flexibility, not only with your food, but with life in general. Because when life stuff happens, that's a term that I always use, curveballs get thrown at you during your prep. You don't want the wheels to fall off the wagon where you're like, I can handle it. I got to miss a couple workouts or my diet was a little off. It's cool. You can still press on. You're not going to mess things up. So basically, it's not letting the highs get too high or the lows get too low. It's being even keel and just having that slow heart rate, like I keep on talking about. That is something I think is forgotten. I mean, I've seen a resurgence of it, but I think the more that you get involved in competing, you put that greater pressure on, only because you expect more from yourself, which is human nature. But don't be to the point where it's going to ruin everything else in your life, because it's just not worth it. Believe me, this is coming from experience through my own personal life and from coaching people, like thousands of people now, believe it or not, where I've seen it all. So to be successful, be more relaxed. Go throughout your day like you would, like you're not prepping. The only difference is that you may be adding some cardio and you're going to be eating less. Yes, you might be needing to prepare more with your posing, but that's just a small part of the day. So this is just something that, I had some conversations with my clients, and just, trials and tribulations of prep, because again, the prep season is picking up again. Obviously, we had the spring season, it dies down a little bit, but late summer and the fall, it's going to be full steam ahead, and it's exciting to see. So when I teach my clients, especially the first timers, I joke with them, like, oh, when am I going to start prepping for a show? And the goal date may not be for another 6 or 8 months. I'm like, you're prepping now, right? I mean, you're doing everything possible that going to put you in the best position to diet down. And you're doing everything possible in the gym, training hard to build the muscle up. So when it does come time to focus on fat loss, it's going to be an easy transition. So if you're weight training and eating healthy, think about it. And you may not want to compete for a year or two. You are prepping for it now. Not that magic number of 12 weeks out is full go. And I think typically when you have that kind of attitude, that's when you have that more aggressiveness going on in your head, where you may, have those bouts of like being angry and just being, not the good person that you really are. So if you have it in your head that you're constantly prepping for something well in advance, it's going to keep you more chill throughout the whole time. So therefore, there's very little transition, with the exception of, again, adding cardio, eating a little bit less. So this is a little bit quicker podcast, but I think could be super beneficial if you're a first-time competitor or someone who's maybe gone through this. I know it doesn't happen overnight, changing the mentality, but often, what you feed your mind is what your body will become. And be conscious of what you give airtime to, meaning that, what you think about is what you're going to be. So if you're not thinking about that stage all the time, because it's not like you have to psych yourself up, for a wrestling match, or, get in a mental game for a boxing match or whatever. You just take it one day at a time, keep on doing what you're doing, train hard, eat right, and just let it take its course. And if you have a good coach, they should be on the same page and follow that same path with you. So I'm going to wrap this one up. Again, if you have any questions or concerns, I'm always here for you guys. You can reach me at fitfranco@verizon.net. I appreciate if you listen and you share these podcasts, put them out there, because this information that I like to put on, audio is basically stuff that I think could last a number of years and will have value. You can find me at Team Franco Bodybuilding at Instagram, Joe Franco, Facebook, and all that good stuff, my website. Any questions again or ideas moving forward, hit me up, guys. Take care. I'll talk to you next time.